few legendary figures are as instantly recognizable as Robin Hood. The image is simple, a green-clad archer hiding in the forest, defying corrupt authority, and stealing from the rich to give to the poor. But behind that familiar picture is a story that has changed dramatically over hundreds of years. Robin Hood is not just one tale, but a collection of ballads, folklore, political ideas, and later inventions layered together over time. Sometimes he is a nobleman wronged by villains. Sometimes he is a common outlaw. Sometimes he is a loyal servant of the rightful king, and sometimes he is simply a rebel fighting local corruption. His legend survived because it could be reshaped for each generation while keeping one powerful idea at its center: the belief that justice can come from outside the law when the law itself becomes unjust. The earliest known stories of Robin Hood appear in medieval ballads, especially from the 15th century. These were not polished novels or official histories, but popular songs and narrative poems passed among ordinary people. In these early versions, Robin is not usually a dispossessed nobleman returning from the Crusades. Instead, he is closer to the yeoman class, not a peasant, but not high nobility either. That detail matters because it places him nearer to the common people who preserved and enjoyed the stories. His world is one of forests, roads, sheriffs, abbots, and local power. The early Robin Hood is not primarily a grand national hero. He is a clever, dangerous, and charismatic outlaw operating on the margins of medieval society, where survival often depended on skill, loyalty, and boldness. Robin Hood's most famous traits were established early. He is an exceptional archer, a skilled fighter, and the leader of a band of men living outside normal authority. Archery is central to the legend because it was both practical and symbolic in medieval England. A great archer could be deadly from a distance, difficult to capture, and valuable in war. In story terms, Robin's bow becomes a sign of independence. He does not need a castle, a noble title, or an army to be powerful. He needs skill, courage, and the loyalty of his companions. The forest setting strengthens this image. Sherwood Forest, though not present in every early tradition in the same way, became the perfect stage, a place beyond the reach of town law, where the outlaw could vanish, regroup, and strike back. Today, Robin Hood is most closely associated with the phrase, robbing the rich to give to the poor. That idea captures the moral appeal of the legend, but it also simplifies it. In many older stories, Robin does target powerful or wealthy figures, especially corrupt churchmen, officials, or oppressive authorities. But the full charitable formula became more emphasized through later retellings. Over time, audiences increasingly wanted Robin to be not merely a daring outlaw, but a champion of social justice. This transformation turned him into a moral rebel. His crimes became acceptable because they were aimed at greed and abuse. His generosity made him different from ordinary bandits. The legend asks a provocative question: when rulers exploit the weak, is resistance still a crime, or does it become a form of justice? No Robin Hood legend feels complete without the Sheriff of Nottingham. In many versions, the sheriff represents everything Robin opposes: legal authority used for personal gain, cruelty disguised as order, and power without justice. Historically, a sheriff was a real and important royal official, responsible for collecting revenues, enforcing law, and maintaining order in a county. That made the office a natural target for popular resentment. To ordinary people, a harsh sheriff could symbolize taxes, punishments, and distant royal power. In the stories, the sheriff becomes Robin's perfect enemy because he is not just a villain with a sword. He is the system itself, the man who can declare someone a criminal, seize property, and use the law as a weapon. Robin's conflict with him gives the legend its sharp political edge. Later versions of the legend connect Robin Hood to King Richard the Lionheart and Prince John. In this familiar setup, the rightful king is away, often associated with the Crusades, while Prince John and corrupt officials exploit England in his absence. Robin remains loyal to Richard and resists the usurping powers at home. This version gives the story a broader national drama. Robin is not just fighting local injustice, but defending the true moral order of the kingdom. However, this setting developed after the earliest traditions. It reflects how the legend grew more elaborate over time, absorbing historical figures and political themes. By tying Robin to Richard and John, storytellers gave audiences a clearer sense of legitimate versus illegitimate rule. Robin may be an outlaw, but in this version, his loyalty is higher than the law that condemns him. Another major change in the legend is Robin Hood's social status. In older material, he is often closer to a yeoman, independent, skilled, and socially below the nobility. But in many modern retellings, he becomes a nobleman, sometimes named Robin of Locksley, who returns from war to find his lands stolen. This shift changes the emotional structure of the story. A yeoman Robin is a hero from among the people, challenging elites from below. A noble Robin is a wronged aristocrat, reclaiming honor and property while defending the poor. Both versions are powerful, but they say different things. The first emphasizes popular resistance. The second makes the hero more acceptable to audiences who prefer noble virtue and rightful inheritance. The legend endured partly because Robin could be both, common enough to represent the people, noble enough to command romantic admiration. Robin Hood's world is also populated by figures who became almost as famous as he is. The merry men are not just background companions, they represent an alternative community. Living in the forest, they form a brotherhood outside normal society, bound by loyalty, humor, and shared resistance. Little John, often portrayed as Robin's strong and loyal companion, gives the group physical presence and warmth. Friar Tuck, added more prominently in later tradition, brings religious satire and comic energy. Will Scarlet and others add variety to the outlaw band. Together, they make Robin's rebellion feel social rather than solitary. He is not a lone avenger. He leads a community that survives by cooperation. That is one reason the legend feels hopeful. It imagines that people pushed outside the system can build their own code of fairness. Maid Marian is another figure whose role grew over time. She is now considered essential to the Robin Hood story, but she was not central in the earliest surviving outlaw ballads. Her connection to Robin developed through later traditions, including festive and theatrical contexts. As the legend evolved, Marian became Robin's lover, moral counterpart, and sometimes an active participant in resistance. In older romanticized versions, she might represent purity, loyalty, and the peaceful world Robin hopes to restore. In more modern adaptations, she is often given greater agency, intelligent, brave, politically aware, and capable of fighting or strategizing alongside the outlaws. Marian's changing role shows how flexible the legend is. Each era remakes her according to its own expectations of love, gender, and heroism, while keeping her tied to the emotional heart of the story. The question of whether Robin Hood was a real person has fascinated historians for centuries. Records from medieval England include names that resemble Robin Hood or Robert Hood, and some have been proposed as possible inspirations. There are references to outlaws and criminals with similar names dating back as early as the late 13th century. But the evidence is complicated. Names like Robert and Hood were not rare, and a similar name does not prove the existence of the legendary hero. Some scholars have suggested that Robin Hood may have been based on one or more real outlaws whose stories merged over time. Others argue that the name became a kind of stock alias, used for bandits or rebellious figures. The uncertainty is part of the legend's power. Robin Hood feels historical, but he remains just out of reach. To understand Robin Hood's appeal, it helps to consider the medieval world that produced him. England in the later Middle Ages was marked by strict hierarchies, local officials, heavy obligations, and frequent tensions between ordinary people and those who governed them. Forest law could restrict hunting and land use. Taxes and rents could feel oppressive. Religious institutions could be wealthy while common people struggled. In that environment, stories about a clever outlaw humiliating sheriffs, abbots, and greedy elites carried obvious emotional satisfaction. Robin Hood allowed audiences to imagine justice delivered quickly and dramatically. He could do what ordinary people could not: confront authority, expose hypocrisy, and escape punishment. Whether or not he was real, he expressed real frustrations. The legend gave voice to the hope that power could be mocked, resisted, and morally defeated. As centuries passed, Robin Hood moved from ballads into plays, books, children's stories, films, television, and modern popular culture. Each medium reshaped him. Victorian and later versions often made him more chivalric and noble. Hollywood emphasized adventure, romance, sword fights, and the dramatic clash with tyranny. Modern adaptations sometimes focus on class struggle, political corruption, or the trauma of war. Yet the basic pattern remains remarkably stable: a charismatic outlaw, a corrupt authority, a loyal band, a forest refuge, and a moral cause. This flexibility explains why Robin Hood is still one of the best-known figures in English folklore. He is not frozen in the Middle Ages. He is a symbol that can be used whenever people want to talk about unfair wealth, abuse of power, and rebellion in the name of justice. In the end, Robin Hood's importance does not depend on proving that one specific man lived exactly as the stories say. Legends survive because they tell societies something about themselves. Robin Hood embodies a contradiction that audiences continue to find compelling. He breaks the law, yet stands for justice. He is an outlaw, yet behaves like a hero. He lives outside society, yet fights for the people within it. That tension is why his name is still used to describe rebels against tyranny and champions of the poor. The details may change from ballad to blockbuster, from yeoman archer to noble crusader, but the central idea remains. Robin Hood is the dream that courage, skill, and solidarity can challenge corruption, even when corruption wears the face of authority. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.